Hi viewers, and welcome to episode 2 of Project XB. In this video we're going to be focusing on fitting the AOD transmission to the coupe. But before that we'll run through a few things that we've done of late. It's been a big couple of weeks on this car. We've fitted the engine, we've fitted the diff, we've fitted the suspension, we've fitted the wheels. We've also fitted the brake lines and the brake booster and master cylinder. And what we're going to have a look at now is actually going ahead and actually fitting the AOD transmission. So let's get into it. It's been a big couple of weeks. We've got the engine in, we've got the master cylinder and booster in there as well, the wiper motor. We've also just placed the wiring in there just so it's got somewhere to be. Here's the suspension, so we've got our springs and shocks all in there. We've got our wheels fitted. And we move right along and you can see that we've also got our rear diff and we've also got our rear wheels attached. So let's get into the next bit, which is fitting the transmission.
When we're fitting an AOD transmission, one of the problems that we've got is that the exhaust will foul the transmission. The reason being is that the pan and the main body of the transmission is a hell of a lot wider than a top loader or a C10, which these vehicles were fitted with. So what we've got to do is we need to spread the exhaust. You'll also notice that we've also sliced the flanges off of these 4-into-1 extractors because they actually foul where the cross member goes, because the cross member is going to be further back because the boxes are a little bit longer, but the mounting point is the main problem and they're back a fair way compared to where they would normally be on a C10 or a top loader gearbox. So the way that we get around that is if we just go into one of the primary pipes, I'm just using a porta power, and all we need to do is basically spread it like this. Once we've spread it enough, we're good to go and we can actually fit up our transmission.
Before fitting our transmission, we need to ensure that the diameter of the spigot on the torque converter will actually fit in the recess of the crankshaft. So using a set of verniers, that's what we're going to be checking here. And as you can see, it fits, so we're good to go.
We're going to have a look at how we go about fitting the torque converter, one of the really important bits, and sometimes people get into trouble trying to fit a torque converter, especially on these AOD transmissions. The reason being is that torque converter needs to go over the input shaft, the secondary input shaft, and also the stator support. It also needs to engage in the oil pump gears or the transmission oil pump gears. If it doesn't, then you can cause a lot of damage to your automatic transmission. So let's get into this. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have got a lot of sealant, and I use Vaseline or petroleum jelly on the seal. The reason that we do that is because it won't interfere with the automatic transmission fluid that goes in the box. That will save the seal from getting pinched and also getting damaged when we go and fit the torque converter. So let's go and try to fit the torque converter to the box. So we just basically put it in like this, and then what we're doing is trying to feel for the different stages. And of course that has gone back all the way.
Okay, so what we're looking at is we want to make sure that the torque converter is in all the way and home. So you can see here that the torque converter is all the way home purely because we've got that space between the edge of the bell housing, and we can see where the spigot runs as well. So we need to make sure that that is back all the way. If that's sitting proud, then what we're going to find is we'll have a bit of an issue where the torque converter is not in all the way and it can damage either the torque converter or the oil pump, which is not what we're after. So this is looking really good. So let's get on to the next bit. Welcome to Mac Badger Chalk and Torque. One commonly overlooked check when creating something that never was, such as fitting this AOD behind a 351 Cleveland, is measuring the torque converter setback or backspace clearance. This is critical as insufficient clearance will destroy transmission oil pumps, converters, and also has the potential to annihilate the crankshaft thrust bearings in the engine. Too much clearance and the torque converter will be pulled out of the transmission oil pump, again causing transmission oil pump drive failures and potentially ruining the torque converter as well. The formula is pretty simple. It's simply distance A, which is the measured distance between the bell housing and converter pads, minus distance B, which is the measured distance between the flex plate torque converter bolt holes and the separator plate. So let's see what that actually means. Distance A is the distance between the edge of the bell housing to the flex plate mounting pads on the torque converter. Whereas distance B is the distance between the separator plate and the flex plate mounting holes for the torque converter. So to summarise, it's simply distance A minus distance B, which equals the setback or backspace clearance.
Okay guys, well one thing that we need to be aware of is if we're using aftermarket bits, it can actually cause us more trouble than it's worth. The reason being is that sometimes they're not manufactured to the same specification as the original, and when you're building something like we are, where we've got an AOD transmission going into an XB, because it's old and the older stuff, the tolerances weren't exactly where they should have been to start with, couple that with a couple of aftermarket parts and we can get ourselves into trouble. One of the issues that we had when we were fitting this up is that we couldn't actually get the backspacing for the torque converter and the actual flex plate itself in the right spot, meaning that it was too tight. We did have some clearance but not enough for expansion, and that could have led to oil pump failures or torque converter failures. So what we did was we took the aftermarket part and we had a look at what was going on compared to the original.
A set of verniers and a flat level surface, we're measuring distance B between the aftermarket flex plate and now the genuine one. As you can see, there's a difference there of around about 4 millimeters. When we push the two flex plates together, you can see the ring gear actually sits proud on the aftermarket one as well. So having found our problem, we can now fit our transmission. Before fitting the transmission, we need to make sure that when in park, the shifter lever is fitted to the 12 o'clock position. So instead of boring you and making you watch it all, I'll put it in time lapse so that we can see it. Apologies for the camera angle, but what we'll do is we'll just have a time lapse of the transmission getting fitted up to the engine, and then we'll catch you up at the end of it. Epic struggle.
Okay, so you can see that the transmission is now fitted up into the hole and it is looking good. Looking from the front of the vehicle, we can see that the transmission has mated up nicely to the rear of the engine. We can also see that our backspace clearance, or our setback clearance for the torque converter, is now at 3 millimeters, which is exactly what we were chasing. Also proves that our flex plate was the issue that we were having. So that flex plate having a slightly different offset in the way that it was stamped was causing us all those problems with our setback clearance. Next step is to fit the torque converter bolts, so we'll go and do that, but for now we'll just leave the episode there. We'll pick it up next time. So thanks for watching, and if you did like it, please like, share and subscribe.